I'm Nick Hernandez. Thank you so much for joining us on the Positivity Matters podcast. We have conversations with authors, scholars, organization leaders, community builders focused on well-being, positive psychology, mental health, and human flourishing. Today, I have Kimberly Rath as a guest on the show. She is the author of the recently released Now, Near, Next, co-founder of Talent Plus, on many boards of the nonprofit and for-profit variety. Kimberly, welcome so much to the show.
Thank you, Nick. It's great to be on your show today. Looking forward to the conversation.
We met, I believe, back around 2011 when I was just getting interested in doing something around community and well-being. And I didn't know what that would be. And I was trying to talk to people that had a interest in community and well-being, and you had jumped out as someone in that with that kind of an interest. And I believe I had stumbled across a quote at some point. And what I've got here is, it has been a dream of mine to have a strength-based approach, not only live in the business communities in which we work, but to move this concept to schools and community groups, moving one of my co-founder, Dr. William Hall's dream to make a difference in the lives of individuals and in the ripple effect that is created when individuals enter into relationships. So there is this entity that Dr. Hall had helped co-create, the Nebraska Human Resource Institute. And my understanding is that you were a participant in that. Tell us a little bit about what that was and what your experience was like with that.
Yes, certainly. So I am a student and alumni of Nebraska Human Resources Institute. I was fortunate to be identified as a freshman at the University of Nebraska in 1980 to join the organization. Dr. William E. Hall and Dr. Clifton founded Nebraska Human Resources Institute. At that time, Dr. Hall was a professor at the university, and Dr. Clifton was one of his students. And they came together to co-create and collaborate on building a nonprofit that would invest in the development of an individual's potential. And so they identified leadership students at the University of Nebraska in their freshman and sophomore years and matched them with leadership students in the Lincoln Public School systems, starting in like first grade. So if you were identified in first grade, you could have a mentor all the way through 12th grade. And I've been fortunate enough to be on the mentor side, but my children have also been on the mentee side, as well as been a part of the program as well. It's the longest running mentoring program in the United States. We're going to be celebrating our 75th anniversary coming up here in October. And the longitudinal research that Nebraska Human Resource Institute has done today shows that mentoring makes a significant difference in the lives of individuals, as we know. But can we show it and prove it with evidence? And from their scientific research and going back and reviewing and analyzing people who've gone through the program, one of the key differences they find of people who've had a mentor during their formative years is they're more generative in their communities, in their businesses, in their neighborhoods. And what I mean by that, they are more likely to lean in and invest in others for the betterment of that individual. So for the benefit of that individual alone. And these individuals today, these alums spread completely across the globe. They're making differences in communities, neighborhoods, in their businesses, and they're some of the best mentors, developers, as leaders in their organizations. So Nebraska Human Resources Institute is very close to my heart. It made a significant impact on me as an individual, and it actually shaped my decision to join Gallup after I graduated from the University of Nebraska. And I've spent my entire life studying human potentiality and how to build platforms to help people grow and develop and really live a fulfilled, joyful life by living through their strengths.
That is fascinating. And when you were talking about effects, was that on the mentee side or the mentor side?
Both, actually. So they've studied individuals on the mentee side and the mentor side. And what they find is that, of course, as a mentor, when you're mentoring somebody, typically you grow the most. You learn so much about yourself and how to help somebody and lean in and become a keen listener. And so both people grow out of that relationship. And both in the evidence-based research that Dr. Lindsay Hastings has completed show these individuals are far more generative. Their strengths really lean into building inclusion and investing in others to create a ripple effect.
I've heard the generativity and its origin was sort of meant kind of the passing of wisdom on from one generation to the next. But I've been thinking about strengths and talent in relation to the concept of generativity. And this is purely hypothetical. I've seen zero research on this, but my thought is something along the lines of when you have your top strengths in hand of the things that you're good at and enjoy, that maybe someone else has their top strengths sort of matching your sort of lower or lesser strengths, and that there's kind of a recognition in all these frameworks of strengths that these are all good things, like for individuals and for humanity. And the sort of what I was thinking was if we are connected to other people, maybe that have top strengths, they've got that over overabundance of passion and energy for their strengths, and that by interacting with others in that way, that might give us more motivation to develop those capacities that we might not have the internal drive to, but just the cognitive understanding that it's a good thing. And through positive relationships, perhaps some sort of a external focused connection between two people, like difference making, that
Mhm.
might be a natural way to sort of help individuals build up their lesser strengths by the rubbing elbows with people who have those in their top. How does what do you make of that idea?
Yes. So, no, I think that's an interesting idea because we all have aces and spaces. And from our research that we've done at Talent Plus, we know that have accelerated growth around our strengths. We never want to ignore our spaces because is there a skill or some knowledge that we can grow those areas and have more intentionality around it, which means we have to have more effort around those spaces because they don't come as natural. And so when you build a team as a leader, what we do is we build a talent grid and we look at, okay, here's my strengths, and then here's all the strengths of my team members, and here's where we have spaces, and here's where we really, have very similar attributes. And through this kind of collaborative coaching with people where you're talking about here's where what I'm really good at, here's where I'm not very good at, and they can also have the same conversation about what they're strong in and what they're not, and then what they're not strong in, is you start to be able to build a partnership where you prop each other up. So rather than thinking about how do I change a area that's not as strong for me, I think about it, how do I get props around
Mm.
me? So what kind of knowledge do I need to learn? What kind of skills do I need to have? What kind of certification, micro certification do I need to have that might prop some of these areas up? And then the best thing is if I have someone on my team that is really good at something, maybe they're very, very organized, and I'm organized, but in a more scattered way sometimes. Even though one of my top themes is focus, it's focused on things that I feel I is where I should be spending most of my time, and other things that I don't think are as important to me, I'm maybe not as organized. But in those areas, then if there's somebody on my team that really likes that detail orientation, that's a time to really play to their strengths. And that's how it props me up to be effective as a leader, that I don't try to be everything and try to be fixing my weaknesses. I try to figure out a strategy of how I can become the very best I can be with the right team members around me and with the right skills and knowledge that I need to acquire.
There might be something like a sort of a peer generativity where it's like that lifting each other up. That so maybe not like in a generational sense of generativity, but in just sort of that peer to peer in terms of the recognition of positive potential in others.
Oh, absolutely. We did
Yeah.
a laboratory actually at the Ritz-Carlton Tyson's Corner. This is years ago on self-directed work teams. And we, in our work with them, of course, everybody was selected based upon their strengths through the Talent Plus assessment. And then we put teams together that could really connect. And these peers came together and these peers decided who they were going to select on their team. They gave performance reviews to each team member. They coached each team member. They mentored each team member, and they became a self-managed or self-directed work team because they took accountability for themselves and for helping each other. And I actually think we need more of that in the workplace today, is
Hmm.
that if we could build that kind of team synergy and that people were that excited about helping each other be really great, how joyful would that be to come to work every day where you had team members who were investing in you and helping you become the best? And we could use a little bit more of that in our world and in our communities today.
So we've brought up the idea of strengths here several times, and I will let you talk about your Talent Plus strengths, which you've mentioned already, and a little bit maybe about those, the VIA strengths, and how you see some of those playing out through what you're doing in the world here.
Yeah, no, that's really great. So, my talent plus leadership strengths, and I'll just name three of them. Is one is focus. I'm very focused. Have when my alarm clock goes off, I jump out of the bed and I'm on to my day. And, I've got a plan. I mentally rehearse my day and review my day. And so I've got a lot of focus, which enables me to get a lot of things done. Um, but what I've also learned is I've had to create space. So here's an example of something that's a strength, but also can be kind of a hurdle. Is I've had to create space of, you know, it's maybe it's not as important to get that done today. It's more important to create space to think, to strategize, to conceptualize what is the next thing that I can do to help a community or an individual in my organization or my family be the best that they can be. I'm extremely high in individualized approach. And so when I look at my mission statement is I passionately embrace my strengths to help people, one, unlock limitless possibilities, experience exponential growth, and celebrate the extraordinary potential in them. So, with my individualized approach, I quickly see what somebody's strengths are and think about how can we tap into that and build a platform. So what I would say is that they tap dance to work every day, because when you get to work and on a team that appreciates your talents, you have a leader who invests in you, and you get to use your strengths every day, you definitely will tap dance to work. And so those strengths of focus, individualized approach, and conceptualization is I like to spend time strategically thinking about how to help organizations grow through human capital. And I've utilized those strengths as well as my VIA character. And it's kind of interesting when I highlighted in my book that I co-authored with Dr. Cynthia Benson Mercer recently, I highlighted my values and my values of integrity, kindness, positivity, love, and belonging. And the VIA came out fairness, honesty, kindness, teamwork, forgiveness. So very similar in terms of the values that I live by. And
Mm.
when I put all of that together, my goal is to inspire and empower individuals and unlock their potentiality and achieve personal and professional collective joy to create a better world. That's what my vision is every single day. And if I live out my vision of how I can be an inspiration and help unleash people and empower individuals to have personal and professional collective joy, I know my neighborhood will be a great place to live. And I know my work will be a great place to work. And I know my family will thrive and be a loving unit.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That is inspirational.
Thank you.
I'm gonna try to summarize your mission here from what
Hmm.
I heard. Be generative. How's that?
Be generative. Yes. Yeah. And, that's really important is, one of my very dear friends always says when she gets a little down, she always says, quit thinking about myself and start serving others. And when she starts to do that, she said, all of a sudden I feel better. When I, quit worrying about, self pity me, and I start serving others, how all of a sudden I start using my strengths. And when you are generative, communities thrive. And when I say community, that means your work, the community you live in, your neighborhood, your family. We have so many communities in our lives. And when we're generative, that, we're there to help somebody be the very best they can be for the benefit of them. Nobody else, not you, not what we're going to gain, but for the benefit of them, everybody grows. And we know mentoring is a significant component to that. And mentoring's a choice, Nick. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of companies today have mentoring programs. Management's a responsibility, mentoring is a choice. So
Hmm.
I kind of walk backwards when a company says, oh, we have a mentoring program. And I ask, oh, well, how does that work? And they go, oh, well, we match people. And mentoring's a choice. So when somebody wants to lean in and develop you and help grow you and really, invest in you, that's a choice. It can't be an assignment. And not everybody is a good mentor. They don't have that natural talent. Now, they might be able to learn some good coaching skills and be a good coach, but they may not enjoy, the mentoring component because it's different than coaching. Mentoring is really an investment time with someone. And the very best mentoring programs is where you let people choose who they want to develop. So at Talent Plus, we have what we call the Plus program, and you identify somebody you would like to mentor, and you also identify somebody who you would like to have mentor you, and then we do the matching that way. So it becomes a choice. It doesn't become that we assign people to it, but people are choosing who they want to spend time with and develop and help grow.
Oh, I love that idea. That is awesome. Okay, so you've mentioned Talent Plus. Tell us about Talent Plus. What is it?
Yeah, certainly. So we have the science of talent. We have developed over 70 talent assessments that are used for selection and development. So our tools are very versatile. They're suitable for evaluating a very experienced individual or someone that's, new and applying to a particular role. But we also do a lot of work. Half our work is on selection and half our work is on talent development, on developing and coaching individuals to bring out the best in them. And so our coaching practice is global practice where we coach leaders all over the globe around their talents and how they can accelerate those and how they can invest in the team members that they have. And we have a lot of clients, over 300 clients. And again, as I mentioned, we're global, so we have an office in Lincoln. We're headquartered in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we have an office in Singapore. We have a couple people located in Europe, and then with our virtual work, we have a lot of people across the United States that we tap into as well. So we're fortunate to be in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's a great community to live in. And, but we're also fortunate to have the kind of expansion across the globe where we've been able to work very closely with organizations and individuals, helping them create great places to work.
Yeah, it seems this is kind of the sort of like the foundation for the upside of a much better world. One of the ideas that kind of jumps out from what you're talking about here is the ripple effect. And you've also talked about the mentoring. I was wondering if you might be willing to talk about some of your experiences of people who've made a difference in your life, opportunities you've had to mentor, seeing the ripple effect in action, whether you were a part of sparking it or not.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, one of the individuals who's made one of the biggest difference in my life is Dr. William E. Hall. He started this focus on studying what was right about people uh, back in a one-room classroom in Oregon. And he started this movement and then went to Ohio State in the early 40s and studied under Dr. Carl Rogers. And so, if you look at a lot of the work that Talent Plus does, it's the Rogerian about the positive regard, listening to individuals and giving them a positive regard to whatever they say. And then he went to the University of Nebraska, where he got the opportunity to continue his study about, will people grow the most when they identify what's right about them and have an opportunity to express their talents every day. And he came to the University of Nebraska. That's where he teamed up with Dr. Clifton. Dr. Clifton learned Dr. Hall's methodology, and that's how this movement started. Of course, positive psychology goes way back before the 1930s. I mean, we can trace it back, to hundreds of years ago and follow that along, but it's become quite a movement across the globe over the last 20 years. And so Dr. Hall's made a huge impact. When we started Talent Plus, we called Dr. Hall to see if he wanted to go in business with us. Well, he was 82 years old, and he still had a couple clients that he was doing a lot of talent development and talent coaching. And he said, I can only make a 5-year commitment. We said, okay, we'll take your 5 years. And when he was into it for about 2 years, he was having so much fun. And this is a good example of when you see an individual start using their talents again. Because when we first met him, his health was not really very good. He's 82 years old. He was struggling a little bit. And when we started asking him for advice and coaching us, and we became his students again, is his health got significantly better. He actually started taking client trips. He was so excited to see clients. And about 2 years in, he said, can I re-up for another 5 years? I'm really liking what I'm doing. And so it tells you, as you age, you don't lose your strengths. It's, do you have the opportunity to use them? And when I think about the ripple effect with Dr. Hall is, he leaned into helping us start Talent Plus. He rippled it through me, and now we moved to Generation 2, G2 with Talent Plus, and they're continuing this mission and vision about helping people grow through their talents and capabilities. And, once you lean into one person, they get a little bit better, and they do it to the next person they lean in, and it begins to ripple. And we can't change the whole world overnight, but I can invest in my neighbor, and that individual can invest in a coworker or a family member, and it begins to spread. And so that's where I get pretty excited about creating a better world. So Dr. Hall's a really, significant individual in my life. Of course, my mom and dad are. So I grew up Mennonite. Um, and where when I grew up, girls didn't go to college. They got married, had children. They were quite, traditional family lives about cooking and cleaning and doing those kind of things. And my dad, through a situation in their family, is my uncle took the family farm, and so my dad had to choose something else that he wanted to do. So he moved to Lincoln, Nebraska, and became a certified public accountant. And through this education, he saw that it opened up an opportunity for him to grow as an individual. And it became an expectation in our family that everybody would go to college and get a bachelor's degree, even me, the girl. And it was now an expectation. It was because education opens up a whole journey for you and creates a lifelong learning for you, to engage in the world around us and everybody. And so my mother and father became very instrumental in me having opportunities to express my talents. And then as I've written this book, Now Near Next, with Dr. Cynthia Mercer, um, one of the things is it's always best to serve the person you once were. And that's when we wrote this book. It's about the study of mid-career women.
Hmm.
And what we find in mid-career women is they get quite restless. It's over 3 decades of work, not generations, 3 decades of time. It starts like maybe age 28 and goes to like 62 kind of thing. And so there's lots of transitions. You get your first job, maybe you get promoted into your first leadership role, maybe you have a family, maybe at the end of that, you're taking care of aging parents. You get opportunities to possibly serve in volunteer organizations as a leader. Um, but what we find is with mid-career women is they just continue to take on more and more volume and don't invest enough in themselves. And so they get restless and unactualized because they're not giving themselves time to have intentional time that's guilt-free and unapologetic to invest in their talents and capabilities. And when I think back on my mid career, that was so true because that was a time we didn't have, virtual calls. We got in an airplane, and I have over 3 million miles on one airline alone, United. That's just one airline. And so I was away from my family so much and not connected in a way that now, if I could do over, I would love to live in the world that we're in today with Zoom, and virtual opportunities. And so I was gone a lot. But when I think about serving these women today and helping them create space to invest in themselves to grow, the more an individual can grow, the more they can help somebody else grow. Because when they are fulfilled and they have really figured out this area of collective joy, they are more likely to invest in others, and then that you get that ripple effect. But when you're empty, you're definitely not going to invest in anybody. And so that's why people say, I'm burned out, I'm stressed, I'm frustrated, is when you're saying those words, I guarantee you, you're not going to be generative. You don't have enough to give, to others. And so well-being is such an important thing for us to work on as individuals, because the more we can work on our well-being in all phases of well-being, as so social, physical, mental, I mean, we can go down financial and all the areas that we can be in well-being. The more we can work on our well-being state, the more likely we are to impact others in a very positive way. And so my kids are also been great mentors for me. And so as they've grown, just the ways that they have like leaned back into me and encouraged me to go back to school when I was 57. I said, I always wanted to get a graduate degree and I just never could find the time. And my kids put together a plan to help me go back. I was fortunate to go to Pepperdine University, which is in Malibu, which is great. And
Oh,
I got my MBA at 57. And it was my kids that said, Mom, we are going to help you find the time to do this and enjoy this, because this is one of the things you've wanted to do your entire life, and we're going to help you do that. And they created a path to help me figure out how to do that with being chairman of the company and all my board work and just being very supportive. And I'm so appreciative and grateful for them each and every day. But that's just one example of how they've actually, you know, returned it and now are very generative in investing in me, and me as one as a family member as well. So
that is a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that. Okay, I was wondering, you brought up well-being, and I was wondering if you might engage in some conceptualization with me for a little bit.
hmm
I've come up with a theory of well-being and sort of the ideas that I have for what makes for a good theory would be that it's comprehensive and that you get down to the bottom of things. So my hope it's still a work in progress, I would say, but Happy Life is the acronym for the theory that I've come up with for human flourishing, and it stands for health, so the mental and physical, aesthetic experience, the natural and created beauty that we experience, pleasure. I think of pleasure as the common ingredient of all the positive emotions, playfulness, and
hmm
I think this one has so many different faces like humor, creativity,
hmm
games, sport, the arts, the yes saying. That one is a phrase from a German philosopher, but it's basically like that you are the creator of values that you then live your life by. The life, as in the web of life, and seeing ourselves as a part of the web of life. Information, which is like knowledge and the pursuit thereof. Friendship, the spectrum of positive social interaction and engagement, that experience of flow and absorption. That's my conceptualization. I'm hoping that it's comprehensive for the upside of life with all the experiences that you've had with all the clients, your own research, like what do you think of that? Are there any like glaring holes in that? Like what do you think?
mm. No, I think you put together a very comprehensive model. And of course, we're all in the pursuit of a happy life, right? And so uh, I love your framework. And I think it's about intentionality. I think it's about how can you take your framework then and create intention around all those components to live the most joyful life. I think what happens is people have a vision, but they don't put the time and the energy and the intention around it to do the hard work, because on the well-being, wheel for human flourishing, you got to work at it. You got to work at it every day. And for example, if you're out of relationship with someone, I hold you back, totally
Mm,
hold you back, you know. And so how do you clear up that relationship? How do you work on that so it doesn't trigger things for you, but it actually you put on a different set of glasses when you see them, and you see them through their strengths, because there's no perfect person out there. And once you start to, like reframe your perspective on somebody, it can change your relationship. Here's an example. So, one of the people that I work with is, Larry Sternberg, and he coached a person one time whose son just had an incredibly dirty room. There were clothes everywhere, it was cluttered. It was just really cluttered and messy. And it was really hard for the parents to deal with this. And they were out of relationship with the son. And Larry said very clearly, if you want to have a better relationship with your son, quit talking about the bedroom, close the door. Just close the door. Don't worry about
Mm.
that and work on the relationship. And all of a sudden, when they closed that off and they started to see their son through what was right about them, it changed the relationship. And so that's what I mean by effort. It doesn't just happen by, oh, I want to work on my well-being. You have to put the work around it. And same with communities have to do that as well, as they've got to put intentional efforts around it to make it a better community. So I like where you're going, and I would really love to see the action plan.
Thank you for conceptualizing about that with me for a little bit here. Yeah. So I'm trying to honor the legacy of William Hall, and the first idea that I've had for applying it, I'm calling it a difference maker generator. And the basic idea is that individuals go through several steps. Basically, look at strengths, values, engage in difference making in ways that are aligned with your strengths and values, and then have like meaningful conversation with others about your experiences of difference making, and in a reflective sense, like looking back over how it's been going and then looking toward the future in a goal focused manner, and how do you want to continue that. And I'm hoping that it draws on that insight from Lindsay Hastings, where the practice internally within that of generativity would be, once you yourself have engaged in reflection on your strengths, values, applying it towards difference making, that you then are able to help others walk into that experience. One of the suggestions for difference making is an hour to three a week of from informal to formal volunteerism. One of my friends was not able to say generativity. And so originally I was thinking calling it the generativity generator, but I changed it for her. And then it was like difference making to honor that
Hmm.
legacy. And I think, that's even more spot on for what I'm trying to do. And I found it to be an incredible experience. And some of those, I was able to intersect with Talent Plus early on. I'd heard about a documentary called Happy, which was kind of an overview of uh, the positive psychology field and people that were living some of the themes in that. And you guys were gracious enough to entertain the idea of hosting a pre-screening, and it was just a wonderful experience to be able to see this thing and to have that take place at a institution such as Talent Plus. That was
Mm.
just extremely encouraging that, yeah, this having community experiences around well-being can really be a thing. So thank you so much for that. And
Mm.
yeah, uh,
Mm. That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Well,
and
we've
then
both
this,
been on this journey, it's a good journey to be on.
yeah, and then
Hmm.
the gentleman you mentioned, Larry Sternberg, um, I don't remember from who, but I was welcome to sit in on his Life's Board of Directors
Mm.
activity. And that was quite an experience. And
Hmm.
it brought me to reflect on the values of that were lived by people who'd made a difference in my life. And one of them, it was my father, who passed away a little before that time when I got to interact with you guys originally. And in going through that experience, I really got to reflect on what he had uh, sort of said and how he lived. And on occasion, he would say, "Don't let the good life get in the way of a better life." And
Mm.
going through this activity with Larry, like, sort of really brought that out. And like, I was able to draw that into the center of those core values that we've worked on.
Hmm. Hmm.
So thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you sharing that today, Nick. That was wonderful.
you mentioned your own sort of conceptualization of purpose for your life in terms of your values, looking at your strengths, having a mission, having a vision. Um, what was it like to to go through that process of formulating those things for yourself? How often do you revisit that, revise that, tweak that? Do you feel like you were living that and then it was just sort of writing it down? Did writing it down uh, affect the trajectory that you were on? And I guess just what was it like, doing the conceptualization around these things and the actual living thereof?
Yes, and yes, and yes. So it's an iterative journey, right? So as you write a vision when you're 20 and a mission statement, it you need to keep iterating that and iterating that and iterating that. And that's what I recently did a couple years ago with my mission and vision. I keep kind of tweaking it a little bit more. Um, but it's important to write it down and then to share it with someone because it's great if you write it down and put it in the bottom drawer. But if you don't share it with someone, then you don't have anybody helping you live out what you hope to achieve in life. And so it's important to share that with others. And that's why I call myself a potentiality expert is I get up every day to help other people identify the potential inside them so that we can celebrate the extraordinary potential inside them. By doing that, I really stay focused on where I find the most joy and excitement. And when I meet every single person, I try to think about what is the potential that lies there. And it's really important. You write it down, you share it, you iterate it year after year. It's a good thing to do, kind of like setting goals for the year. It's a good thing to look at your mission and your vision every year and your values and say, how have these changed? Because as we get more information and we evolve through life and we evolve through the different chapters, of course we change with new ideas and things we experience. Um, those things are added to our lives to help us become the very best we can be. So um, I would encourage everybody to go through that process.
And in some of the ways that you've engaged your values out into the world, see that you've been on several boards, probably many boards, probably more boards than you can that can come to mind. But a couple that jumped out, Lincoln Community Foundation, and another one, Artists for Trauma. These are some nonprofit boards, from what I understand. But what are some of the experiences you've had around being in the supportive role of nonprofit organizations?
Well, I love being a part of something that is investing in communities and people. And so Lincoln Community Foundation, one of my all-time favorite boards to have been on, because the impact that they make across the Lincoln community is significant. It is a difference maker. Like Give to Lincoln, that's coming up here in a couple of weeks, is so many nonprofits earn dollars that they need for operations and for the work that they're doing. That's so important. And so that was a really wonderful board to be a part of. I learned a lot about Lincoln. I learned a lot about the needs we have in Lincoln and how much more work we need to do in Lincoln to help everybody have a better life. And then the other one was Artists for Trauma, right? You mentioned, did you mention
Yeah,
Artists?
yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a board in California, and it is for individuals who've been through a traumatic life experience. So a lot of our artists have been through maybe a motocross accident, or maybe they're a vet and they've served for our country. Maybe they were in a car accident, maybe they had a stroke, but they've had a traumatic experience that has changed some of their capabilities. And so a number of our artists are in adaptive chairs. They used to be called wheelchairs. They're called adaptive chairs these days. And we use art. It could be a medium of paint. It could be singing. It could be dance. Um, it could be creative writing. There's all kinds of different, there's lots of different ways that we help people express creativity through the arts. And we have artists across the United States that we've provided supplies or opportunities or education, scholarships for them to have the means to do something to help them discover some new talents that they may have or accelerate the ones that they have. So that's been a really fun and impactful board for me as well.
Awesome. So that seems like quite a impactful way to practice difference making in the world. Now, I understand that just here recently you've released a book and that it is now in many forms available to the general public. Uh, Tell us a little bit about what this book is about and what you hope its impact to be, and then in looking at your own mission and vision, what you hope to be working on in the future.
Yeah, so our book is now near next. It was on the US Today bestseller list, number 22. So it's in the top 25. So we're pretty excited about that. It's for mid career women, women who are in that, mid career stage, somewhere between 28 and 62, and need to create more intentionality around their learning journeys and invest in themselves unapologetically, guilt free. And so I'm super excited about the work that I can do there. And we're also now creating an allyship companion guide with that so that because recently women surpassed men in the workforce, we now make up 51% of the population in the workforce. So we want to help men also become the best allies for their sisters, their mothers, their daughters, their coworkers,
Mhm.
of how they can help women maximize their potential in the workforce. So, and ultimately it isn't really about gender because anybody can pick up our book and they can apply it to themselves. But what we find is women do about 2.6 times more of the household work in our
Mm.
research. And so they do have some different responsibilities and caregiving that they naturally lean into. It's not a bad thing. We just naturally do it because a lot of times we find joy in that, taking care of our families. And so it's how do we support that? How do men support that as being good allies to that? And actually tapping into this workforce potential to help our organizations grow. So that's what I get pretty excited about. And I am on a number of boards today. And so I want to give back and help each one of those companies grow. I want to continue my work around mid career and understanding how to unleash potential and help people become more actualized in their work and their professional life. And I just want to every day, every week, every month figure out how I'm learning something new. So how do I keep growing and live the very best life in a very healthy life um, as I age as well? So that's where I'm at today.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Is there
Mhm.
anything else that you'd like to share about?
I think, one of the quotes in our book is you can always make more money, but you can't make more life.
Mm.
And I think that is something we really need to think about is, sometimes we get up and we chase the wrong thing and you can always make more money, but you can't make more life. And so that's why well-being is such an important component of how we live our lives.
And if people want to find out more about your work, where would you send them?
So you can come to www.talentplus.com or www.zealoftheheal.com.
Kimberly Rath, thank you for being a guest on the Positivity Matters podcast.
Thank you.